Hello everyone, welcome to the next review. I say review, however this is going to be a shorter video because there's a continuation of my video reviews that aren't so much reviews as explorations, reminiscences of the book. Because I read this a while ago and it's not one that really made an impression on me. There's certain books that I read, non-fiction especially, that I gain something from it, but I don't necessarily think that it's the greatest thing in the world and I constantly come back to it. However, this book is particularly interesting, and I chose this book to review today because I'm currently writing an essay on the exact subject matter of this book, really. Umberto Eco's The Book of Legendary Land. When I say that I forget books, it sounds as if I have a lot of books on my shelf. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Most of my books are on Kindle. About half of my books were on Kindle. And I almost forgot about this. It almost faded from memory, I have to say. But looking back at this book there's something about this book that's very well produced. I'm not one for going into the tactile details of books, but I really love the kind of glossy finish to this book. The weight of it is great. You can see just the cover art there as well. And if I just flick through here, you'll see the extent and the detail, how in depth this book is. Full page color illustrations. I mean, so many. It's so well produced. You can see just how much there is here. Which is a positive, but unfortunately it's also a negative as well. But we'll go on to that. So if you're not familiar with who Umberto Eco is, I think he's primarily known for The Name of the Rose, which is a book I've not read. However, I've thought about reading it for some time. It's a kind of scholarly medieval mystery story, very in depth, very literary, and very critical. He however, is very famous for writing a series of works, for example, on beauty, on ugliness, and the infinity of lists. I thought about getting on beauty, however, that book kind of, I imagine that book kind of suffers from the negatives of this book, the very similar formats. But for now, in the tradition of On Beauty, On Ugliness, and the Infinity of Lists, Umberto Eco presents an enthralling and erudite illustrated tour of the fabled places that have awed us and eluded us throughout the ages. From the epic poems of Homer to contemporary science fiction, from the Holy Scriptures to modern mythology and fairy tale, literature and art are full of illusory places we have at some time believed are real, and onto which we have projected our dreams, ideals and fears. Apologies for the noise. Umberto Eco leads us on an illuminating journey through these legendary lands: Atlantis, Thule, Hyperborea, the Earth's interior, and the Land of Cockaigne, and explores utopias and dystopias, where our imagination can confront concepts that are too incredible or too challenging for our limited real world. In the Book of Legendary Lands, the author's text is accompanied by several hundred carefully assembled works of art and literature. The result is a beautifully illustrated volume with broad and enduring appeal. What this book is really a survey of, again, legendary lands, mythical places, threshold places, liminal spaces. So of course this book was originally written in Italian. This is a translation. However, I didn't really notice that there was any issues with the translation at all. So just to give you an idea of some of the places that are discussed in the book, we have, for example, the flat earth and the Antipodes, biblical lands, the lands of Homer and the Seven Wonders, so of course Greco-Roman myth, the wonders of the East, from Alexander to Prester John. So Alexander, that might be things like the gates of Gog and Magog. Prester John being, if I remember correctly, the mythical king that various European kingdoms used to believe in. El Dorado, Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, Ultima Thule, Hyperborea. You might be aware of some of those names if you're a fan of, if you're a reader of Clark Ashton Smith, Howard, Lovecraft, people like this. The Land of Cockaigne, the Islands of Utopia, of course Thomas More's Utopia, the Interior of the Earth, and at the very end on page 432, so it's quite a big book for the dimensions. Of course that includes the illustrations, however. Fictional places at the very end there, so Tolkien's Arda, Narnia, places like this. I have to say, this book is just, it's filled with illustrations, filled with detail. It's almost overwhelming in a sense. I love books like this. It recalls the architecture book that I recently reviewed, in that I just love this sort of profusion of wonderful places and beautiful things to look at and all these different details on every page. One thing that I dislike, however, and it's a repeated kind of, not an error, but kind of just a general negative of the book, is that after each section, so for example, I'm on section 1, the flat earth and the Antipodes, we'll just get a very brief, very disconnected and fragmentary literary passage, which kind of highlights or serves as a kind of exemplar of the kind of general area that we're talking about. So, for example, the Antipodes will have an inclusion of an excerpt from Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time called The Turtle, and it will be related to the Antipodes or flat Earth theory. For example, the flat Earth of the pre-Socratics, and it will talk about. I'll give an excerpt from Aristotle's On the Heavens, and it's just maybe a paragraph or two, and it's incredible just how detailed it is and just the breadth and scope of this work. However, I think it leaves you wanting more. I think it's a good reference book, but it definitely leaves you wanting more. I'll just skip. I mean, you can see just how much is in here and just how well produced it is. It's really quite inspiring. So I'll give you another example. So biblical lands, we have travels of Marco Polo, everything down to the measurements of the Temple of Solomon, I think, from Ezekiel. It's just, there's a lot in here. It feels kind of disparate, but at the same time, it's almost exciting. It kind of captures the imagination. The lands of Homer, we'll just get an excerpt from a particular translation of the Odyssey, but of course by Homer. The Wonders of the East, from Alexander to Prester John, various manuscript illustrations, illuminations. Really, there's just so much to look at here that it really is overwhelming. So I'm thinking of the uses of this book, and I don't think there's a single sort of creative pursuit that it wouldn't be useful for. It's very inspirational for artists, for writers, for researchers, for philosophers. There's so much here, because it talks about myth, religion, science fiction, philosophy, geography, topography, music as well. I'm noticing it just has everything not only related to lands, but history, culture, customs, etc., etc. In a sense, it does remind me of the forest and folklore and mythology, just a little bit more, indeed quite a lot more structured than that book. So just to give you an idea of just how varied and textured this book is, I'll just skip to the fictional places section. We have On the Way to Dracula's Castle, selection from an excerpt rather from Dracula, Sinbad and Rock the Bird from The Seven Voyages of Sinbad, Pantagruel on the Ringing Island from Rabelais, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Francois Rabelais. Just on the Island of Solomon and the Austral Land section, we have a very obscure work by Zachariah Seriman from the 1700s on the island of Sign Carefully, the dog-faced people. Pseudo-Callisthenes in the section on Alexander here from the 3rd century, the romance of Alexander the Great. The Monsters of the East, Isidore of Seville. That was a book of legendary lands. I do highly recommend it. It's definitely a great reference work. I'm not sure that it really has much synthesis. I'm not sure that it really... it's more of a sort of dip your toes in and out type of book. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Till next time.